Welcome everyone. Today we'll be learning an amazing Gemling Legionnaire build. That's right, if we had a look over here, this pinnacle boss was pretty much one-shotted within 1 second. So in this video, a lot of our viewers have been recommending me to look into the Gemling Legionnaire because this is one of the strongest endgame stat stacking guild. You can be stacking tons of intelligence, strength, together with dexterity to do this. This is pretty amazing, right? Yes, I have been looking around for some of the cool combos and I have decided this is the build that we definitely want to have a look. So what is happening is our Gemling Legionnaire friend here is actually multicasting a lot of spells as you trigger your abilities and also moving rapidly across the map. You are using Herald of Ice together with Herald of Thunder, together with trigger spells and also multiple usage of your spells to be super mobile and also dealing tons of damage and also with a massive AoE radius. As you guys can see in the demonstration over here, the build itself is very powerful in terms of tons of stat stacking. And you can be traveling across the map super fast, auto casting multiple spells, and with this massive AoE radius, you are one-shotting everything as you go across the map. The build itself also has tons of mana and also tons of life simply because you are stacking a lot of strength. Now the Gemling Legionnaire class gains increased quality to your gems together with increased attribute gain to allow this build to become something of the strongest stacking build in the early access for Path of Exile 2. And of course the mobility, the auto casting is amazing for this build. And in case you guys are wondering, how are we moving so fast? We're actually not running. We're actually using an active ability which allows us to slash us away across the map. So this build can remove the necessity of having a movement speed onto your boots and still travel super fast because you're actually casting spells as you slashes around across the map with infinite attack speed. Pretty cool, right? Now, not only this build is super creative, it also uses some amazing combination of the unique jewels to turn something like this into something like this. Pretty amazing, right? And you can go for something like this. Yes, we'll be going through all those special amazing tricks for this endgame build, how you can be getting a lot of more stats and also a lot more damage and also save up a lot of more passive points in this video. Now, before we dive into the builder's guide, there are a few additional notes I want to share with you guys together with the shoutout and also credits. So over here, we're learning this build from Ashimar on YouTube, and he has just posted this build lately. And one of the reasons I'm learning from this build is actually some of my viewers actually recommended to have a look at his video, which he got hacked about 4 days ago and losing 900 divines. And this is a terrible experience. You can see that he even mentioned that this is my last video. So before we start, I really do want to recommend and give a big shout out and also thank you for Ashimar still coming back to share his build even though he'd lost all of his items. And I do want to recommend everyone to support him on YouTube, subscribe to him, and give him the motivation to keep playing Path of Exile 2 even after losing all his items. He's starting over again. So yes, a big shout out and also credits to Ashimar for sharing this wonderful build which we'll be learning together. And yes, very unfortunate guys, the hacks and also the exploits are still going around, so please make sure you stay safe. Now there are also 2 things I want to mention before we dive into the builder's guide. The first one is this build will cost you quite a bit of budget in terms of divine. Ashimar over here mentioned it is around 50 to 500 divine, and by my calculation it can go beyond 500 divine. We are using multiple uber unique items together with endgame unique jewels and also even potential using corrupted gears for better stats. So you can see some of the jewels and socketing is actually very powerful, but because of this is not a cheap build. So please be aware of this before you dive into it because it looks amazing, right? And finally, there are potential nerfs to things that is too OP at the moment, and a lot of players are speculating the Herald that is used in this particular build, the Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, can potentially be nerfed this particular week in some ways, together with the nerfs to the Spark build and also the nerfs to the potential infinite blink damage stacking build. Yes, if you haven't seen my previous video guys, the infinite damage stacking build is just like this one, except you're blinking and run and you're also doing infinite damage as you critical multiple times and chance onto yourself. So make sure you check out that build as well because yes, the boss dies with everything auto casted. So now that we covered all the important notes, let's come over to the builder's guide and let me go through with you guys to this wonderful build. Now, because the build has a massive budget, so what I want to do is I want to show you guys the build has two variants. Ashimar was very nice to share us with his variant of a cheaper setup and also going with a more expensive setup, getting Ingenuity build and also Astral Mantis, which will greatly double your damage of the build with massive stat bonus. So firstly, how does this build work? Is that we're stacking a lot of stats coming from rings and also coming from those unique pieces. And one of the biggest thing of stat stacking is that you can see for this particular weapon, you're gaining increased attack speed per dexterity. You're gaining increased weapon damage per strength. And similarly for these gloves, you're gaining increased lightning damage per intelligence. You're gaining increased attack speed per dexterity. So this is why the stat stacking is even stronger for the Gemling Legionnaire. Now if we zoom in a little bit, you can see that for Gemling Legionnaire, with his Ascension passive, inherent bonuses for intelligence, strength and also dexterity are doubled, which means you are gaining massive stat bonus, massive damage, attack speed and also even higher damage because of those gifts. Together with combining with additional stat increase with a Black Sun helmet and also having here the ability to gain even more spirit using the soul cores and also using this particular chest, this build can stack a lot of stats. In the endgame version of the form, Ingenuity with up to 160+% bonus to the rings, where the rings are focused on the bridge rings with a massive stat increase to strength, intelligence and also all attributes, which allows you to stack over 200 stats, and even the boots are here to stack with additional stats. So now that we understand the core concept of the build itself also have ways to scale even further, because as we're going to go to the skill trees, there is tons of unique jewels you can be using to allow multi-layers of balancing and also gaining of the rings and also radius, which is actually crazy. And you can see similarly to our previous build, he also uses the unique jewels that allows you to find more radius without pathing to them. And finally, the build can also use two different unique potions with a unique life potion and also a unique mana potion to have even higher damage and also more sustain. So coming over to the socketing of the gems and also the links. Over here, again, a big shout out to Ashimar, and I do recommend you guys to follow him because here he has made the build without any 6 links, and this does help to lower the budget a little bit for the build. So let's briefly go through the skill choices. We have Combat Frenzy over here combined with Clarity and also Perfusion. We have Cast on Shock, which will auto trigger multiple spells with Energy Retention, Impetus, Eye of Winter and also Deceleration, which makes the projectile a little slower. Now I mentioned earlier we're using 2 Herald, and what Ashimar actually mentioned that is he also learned the Herald setup from Fobgon. So again, a shout out and also thank you to Fobgon as well for sharing his combos. So Herald of Thunder is combined with Longshot, Cold Fusion, Ice Bite and also Glassification. And over here Herald of Ice is combined with Lightning Infusion, Conduction, Overcharge and also Magnify Effect. Now because we need quite a bit of spirit, that's why we're having this chest to also provide us with additional spirit per rune or so-called socketed over here. And as we keep going, you can see we have Tempest Fury over here combined with Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Inspiration and also Electrocute. Now over here I do want to mention Tempest Fury is one of the ways we're moving super fast across the map with the Martial Tempo for the quicker casting or quicker attack speed, and also with Crescendo to perform twice in succession for the spells with less cost. And this in combination allows us to have rapid attacks that allows us to travel super fast across the map. So yes, we're not really running, we're holding down this particular spell button to be slashing across the map. We also have Charge Staff combined with Stripped Away, Lightning Exposure, Persistence and also Calling Strike. Now notice that Strip Away will allow us to have even more lightning exposure to lower the enemy's lightning resistance. And as you guys can see in the video, we're doing both ice and lightning damage. So we're doing 2 different elements of damage with rapid speed of mobility and also tons of AoE. Now over here we have Storm Wave combined with Innovate, Mobility, Rage and also Upheaval. Now for the final 2 skills, we're actually using double Tempest spell. Over here, because of the limitation of the builder's guide, I couldn't get 2 Tempest spells, but as you can see from the screenshots coming from Ashimar's videos, he's using 2 Tempest spells with different supporting gems. So let's have a look at this particular skill. The first Tempest spell is going with Hourglass, Super Critical, Rage Forge, and also with Concentrated Effect. The second Tempest spell we have over here goes with Overabundance, Primary Armament, Close Combat, and also Execute. So yes, he's using 2 Tempest spells, and make sure you guys know this part because we're not using Mana Tempest. Keep in mind, this is just a placeholder. Now coming over to the passive skills, because Ashimar has mentioned that the passive skills is a lot of details that you need to understand, including the uses of unique jewels and also the combination to stack multiple unique jewels that gives you tons of elemental resistance. And if you're missing those unique jewels, this is why the build can be a little weaker without enough budget. And I'll be going through those with you guys in this part. So as you can see, we are ascending as the Gemling Legionnaire, and this allows us to get double bonuses from the strength and also intelligence, and of course we can use any of the gems. Over here we'll be getting additional quality to skills, which is very good, and together with less cost to skills. Now in terms of the pathing, we're going over here and we'll pick up anything that provides us with additional strength, dexterity, and also intelligence, and also bonus to attributes. As we move forward over here, you can see that we're getting additional critical, we're getting additional attack speed per accuracy, and this is all coming from the stat stacking. One of the focus we have is that we want to stack a lot of stats, which in return will benefit us with even high damage. So here we have the stacking of dexterity again, and you can see lots of jewel sockets are very important, as you're going to see in the later part. So as we path forward to here, and also we get over here, we'll also be gaining additional intelligence. Now because you guys can follow the builder's planner, what I want to do over here is I want to combine with the choices of the unique jewels and also some of the screenshots coming from the video. Now one of the reasons we're looking at the screenshots is because Ashimar has mentioned that he lost his entire account and with all his jewels and also his items, and because of that we're looking at the screenshots from his previous gameplays. So what we can see over here is the first jewel you can look at is Against the Darkness. And Ashimar has given us the tallied list of the choices of the notables you can be looking for. Anything that provides us with increase of strength, intelligence will be really good, dexterity is not bad as well, and you kind of want increased damage as cold or increased damage as lightning, which can be really good. One of the ways you can be searching for those jewels is coming over here and also putting the name of the Against the Darkness. After that, coming over here to go with the Divine Orbs and filter by 2 to 3 Divine may be the best way, because at 1 Divine, they actually don't have many of the good stats. And this is a little troublesome, but I want to teach you guys everything. Once you scroll down all the way to the page, you can then search for keywords like extra damage as lightning, and then you have to match the other keywords like bonus strength for a jewel that can be working for you for this build. Now I know it is a little tedious, but this is the way the game is currently set up for the moment for the shops, and a lot of players don't know how to buy those jewels, so they're still quite cheap if you know how to filter them. And once you have picked your Against the Darkness jewel, notice that this is socketed over here. So if I come over to the builder's guide, it is socketed over here, as you guys can see from the screenshots. Now something interesting happens. This particular unique jewel from nothing is something that is very interesting. It will allow you to perk into nodes next to a particular big node without having pathing into them. So over here we have Resonance, and here what you can see is if you have this unique diamond socketed in elsewhere, what you can do is you can start to overlap and you can perk into those 3 points without having need to path into them to save a lot of passive skill points. And all of this will be overlapped and also providing additional benefits for Against the Darkness jewel. And this is a big highlight for this build, and the reason I want to pick this build for you guys is how smart Ashimar was in combining those jewels. I do think he mentioned he learned this from Fobcom, and again big shout out to them for sharing this additional technique for combining jewels for additional effect. So yes guys, once you have those 2 jewels in effect, they're not cheap. I warn you guys, you can see the price of the screenshots over here, 67 Divine. It has gotten a little lower now, but you can see you can get additional attributes, you can get here, and this all combines to get additional stats because of the Against the Darkness jewel, which allows you to combine the combination in this particular form. Now as we continue with the choices of the unique jewels, yes guys, we still have a lot of unique jewels to go through. We have talked about control metamorphosis in our previous video as well, so if you have seen this video, we also use that particular jewel. This is also not a cheap jewel, and they also have negative effects to your character because it lowers your resistance and also lowers your chaos resist. But what this allows you to do is, this allows you to perk into points that are over here, and this will massively save your skill passives. So you can see the 3 points that is perked is over here, over here, over here. So coming over to the builder's guide, once you have gotten this particular unique jewel, this is when you want to come over here for this socket, and then you can get this particular point for free, which scales with additional intelligence per lightning damage. And here you can get those points for free as well, and this will allow you to deal even higher damage. But only get those points if you have gotten this jewel. Otherwise, it is kind of wasted to go over here unless you have gotten this jewel correctly. Now notice at this point, you're losing quite a bit of resistance because picking this jewel, and also you're not getting the best resistance. So here Ashimar has recommended for us to look for the plus for the 4% L elemental resistance onto this unique jewel. And what this does is it will plus 4% per socket of Great Spectrum. And if you have the Grand Spectrum with 3 of them, and this is limited to 3 by the way, if you have 3 of them, each of those will give you 12% all resistance. Together, this will give you 36% all resistance. I have set the filters for you guys to have a look, and this is filtered towards 4. You can go as low as 3 and it is cheaper, but it is not the best in stats. What is recommended is to at least go to 4. Now, one of the endgame setup, you can even go to 5 if some people corrupt this one properly, but you can see the price when you go to 5 is tremendously higher. But the effect will be higher too, because every of those you stack, you're getting 15% if you're getting all of those right. But the price is no joke. So this is why the build can go over 500 divine if you really start to make at max. What's recommended is to go around 4% for 3 of them, and yes, you want 3 of them. If you don't get 3, 1 of them gives you 4%, 2 of them gives you 8%, 3 gives you 12%, and this is multiplied by 3. So a lot of the socketing of the jewels over here are using those unique jewels to give you the best stats. Now finally, if you have any spare jewel socket that is left, you can go for some rare jewels that provide you with life or mana recovery on kill. Anything you needed, those are not majored and you don't have to pay a lot for this. Anything that provides you with more lightning damage, more cold damage can also work over here. So now that we talk about the choices of passive trade, which oh boy, it is amazing. And coming back to the gears, one thing you want to notice that even for the cheaper setup, you do need a few of the uber unique gears to make it work. And for those particular gears, there's something you want to notice, especially for this weapon. Those weapons and also unique gears can also be corrupted to get even higher stats. But in order to do so, those can cost a lot of divines and also currency. So if you're following the builder's guide, make sure you look at the cheaper version first to see if your budget can allow for this. I'll also provide you guys with some of the links to the filters for those items to get you guys started if you want to follow the build. And once you go to the endgame version, you can see there's a lot more gears, there's a lot more stats, a lot more damage. Now we mentioned earlier the combination of the weapon, the gloves, and also the helmet gives you tons of stats. Over here, those items can also be corrupted for additional socket, corrupted for additional Affix bonus, and also corrupted for additional attack speed and also bonus lightning damage that is stacking with your stats, which can make them very expensive but also very powerful. And similarly for the helmet, of course. As per the chest piece, we are getting a lot more spirit, and this also provides us with additional rarity as well. Now, in terms of the rings, those bridge rings can be very expensive because a lot of builds want those rings. And those rings have an increase of maximum quality, providing us with more rarity, more damage, and also providing us with tons of all stats. If you can, getting ingenuity over 70% will be preferable, because under 70% this belt is not as good, not as powerful compared with those rings. And you can see the stats we're looking for those rare rings are gonna be increased life, 5 damage to attacks, increased rarity, all stats, strength, and also intelligence. If you're looking for the budget setup, you can see that those other rings can also provide us with rarity of item found, more resistance, and additional resistance that you're missing, because assuming that you don't have the budget to get all of those special unique jewels that provide you with additional resistance like the ones over here. So if you're going for a budget build, it is likely that you don't have all the budget to go for those expensive items, so there's a cheaper version for the build. Now this is also the case for the belt, with additional life, mana, and also tons of resistance. As for the boots, it is similar. Now over here I did notice that Ashimar did not go for movement speed. I did perk in for movement speed on this one, but you don't have to go for movement speed because as you can see in his build, he doesn't need movement speed. He's just slashing away and he's moving super fast because of all the stat stacking. So similarly on the boots, you can see there's maximum life, there's additional rarity, there's tons of stats and also resistance. If you cannot afford the Astral Mantis amulet, which is very expensive, going for an amulet like this with maximum life, tons of stats, and also even rarity can also be a cheaper Astral Mantis. But of course, if you can get Astral Mantis over here, this is the best in-slot amulet for the stat stacking. Because those stats can also be amplified massively, provide you with tons of damage, attack speed, and also all the benefits with survivability. Now finally I do want to add, the build can use normal health and also mana potions, but you can go a little further with those unique potions. So in terms of the ultimate life unique potion with all this resolve over here, you will have instant recovery of life, and also this provides you with extra life recover as guard, which is a little expensive, so keep that in mind. Now at the same time, the Melting Maelstrom is very powerful because it can restore your mana fully for 7 times within the charges with 10 charge per use with 75 charges. This also allows you to do more damage in the 3 seconds of the effect, dealing additional mana spent as chaos damage. There is a downside, is that because even though this instantly restores your mana and also gives you more damage, you will be taking damage as chaos damage when the effect ends. But again, this is a very powerful potion for most of the class and also builds, because even when the mana is full, this will also continue to recover mana, and this lasts for about 10 seconds, which is very powerful. Now coming over to some skill rotations and also combo for the build, you can see that against the boss you can be using your Tempest build, and as you hold down your skills, a majority of the combination with auto triggers is auto casting off your spells. And over here you can see as you dash around across the map with Tempest Fury, yes, I did forget to mention that Tempest Fury over here allows you to dash around with your multiple strikes. And this can be scaling towards attack speed, I believe. And this allows you to be moving around without needing the mobility of the boots, which is very powerful. So majority of the mapping and also the contents, you can just be dashing around with your skills instead of running. And you do have to hold down the button, but it works, right? And you don't really have to cast anything because there's a lot of trigger spells, massive AoE radius, and everything is pretty much auto-casted as you slash your way across the map, which is really amazing to watch and also looks very powerful, right? Now before we finish the video, again a big thank you and a shout out to Ashimar over here for sharing his build, especially after losing his account. I do recommend coming over to his builder's guide because likely I missed a few details, and here he explained the mechanics and so combos and also why he's getting such a big explosion radius and also the choices behind getting more power charges and also the usage of the juice. So make sure you come over to his video to learn more about this build and also to stay updated for the Gemling Legionnaire. Now before we finish, if you guys haven't subscribed, this is a really good time to do so because I'll be looking into the latest Path of Exile 2 news on different communities and also on the official forum, official webpage. I'll also be looking into the best build for each of the class as the meta develops with the Chinese and also the English community. So stay tuned for the latest update and also guides for Path of Exile 2. And of course, this is gonna be a big month for us. And I'll try to bring you guys all of the latest content and also guides for Path of Exile 2 to come.